Authorities are wondering if the masked vigilante who terrorized the city's underworld is back.
The past has caught up with me.
Should we be worried?
No, it's nothing. I'll be home for Christmas. I promise.
First things first, Jeremy, I'm going to start with you. So this is a 10-year journey to this moment where, Hawkeye finally gets to shine with his sort of like standalone series. Just talk about what it was like when they told you they were going to do it and how it feels to come to this point in the journey.
Exciting. It was super, super exciting back then when we were discussing it, and even more exciting now that it's done and we get to share it.
Hailee, I'll bring it to you because it's crazy to think of it, but this whole MCU universe sort of grew up alongside you in a lot of ways. And so, talk about joining it and then, what that moment was like when you found out and your feeling about the MCU in general.
I'll never forget that phone call that I got when I found out that this would be a reality for me, something that I never would have believed could be. Being a part of the MCU. So I feel incredibly honored. So grateful, very lucky. And I've had such an amazing time. And I feel a part of a show I'm very proud of and very excited about. Can't wait for people to see it.
Jeremy, what's interesting about this when I was talking to Rhys is he said he really liked playing up the sort of like you at the holidays, cantankerous a little bit, just trying to get home to his family. And so, if you can sort of like just set up where Hawkeye is at this moment and just the kind of maybe the fun you had, because I feel like it's a little bit of a like journey home story, a little bit of a Grinch in there. And then Kate's just kind of giving you the business the whole time.
Well, the guy's carrying a lot on his shoulders, and he's taking his kids out to New York to go see a musical that he's invited to. And I think there's a lot of the seriousness on him and the grumpiness comes from like, look, he wants to go home to his kids, and anything that's in the way of that, it's like it's probably not going to be the most pleasant human. And I don't think Clint was very pleasant in the beginning of the show because of that. But that's where a lot of the beginning of the humor comes from. It's all based in truth, right? So, and then the expression of our friendship kind of grows into other things. So,
I love that. And I would never be sad having to watch Rogers the musical, but I completely understood why Clint was not exactly signing up for that. I get it. Hailee, for you, another added bonus of this is you get to play with all the like MCU toys. So talk about the bow and arrow training. And I'll ask you, Jeremy, were you giving her like tips on like, be careful, it can like pop back on you? Or were you guys trading bow and arrow stories?
It was very fun to dive into that whole aspect. I was very intrigued and excited that was obviously a very big part of this show and of Kate's world. I learned a lot very quickly. I learned that we don't use real arrows, but I still was very much like Kate, excited about the trick arrows and all the other MCU toys that you mentioned. But we had a good time with it.
Yeah.
What's the biggest thing about doing it with no arrows? Like, is it just like you kind of like, do you get the string with it?
Yeah.
Okay, you still get the string, but no arrows.
You get the whole bow, just no arrows.
Jeremy, like I said, this is kind of like a momentous sort of like moment in the story of Clint and Hawkeye, but you've had a lot over the history, starting with the first one in Thor when you're just taking aim at poor Chris Hemsworth as Thor. But what's been your favorite, moment while you've gotten to play this character, or, one that you just particularly mark with fondness?
It's not any one moment in the work of it. I think it's in the value of friendships that was bestowed onto me because of it over the last decade. And made a lot of great friends, and then forever friends. It's pretty amazing.
That's a really sweet one. I was hoping you were going to say singing the I'm a Superhero 2 song on Jimmy Fallon, because that is one of my all-time favorite moments.
I forgot about that.
Like, I'm sorry, Chipotle, extra guac at Chipotle is a really big deal. Real quick, there's a lot of folks that get introduced into this series, and it seems like with every show, we get to meet new characters. But if you could think about anyone in the MCU that has already sort of been introduced that you would like to see Kate Bishop either go toe-to-toe with or team up with, besides Hawkeye, who would you like to see her sort of interact with in later episodes, maybe?
Oh, man. There's way too many.
You can name a run, girl. Nobody's going to hold you to it. It's your show.
You know, wow. The possibilities are really endless, aren't they? Yeah, I don't even know where I'd begin. Also, I feel like Kate wouldn't either. So I'll have to think about that.
Oh, all right. I'm just going to picture you hanging out with Valkyrie because that just makes my heart sing. So.
When I wore this suit, I made a whole lot of enemies.
You're Hawkeye.
I'm going to start with this because it's kind of Kate Bishop's torment, the fact that you guys are a couple. So maybe you could fill folks in on
We don't know. We can't fill. We don't know what her problem is. We really don't. I can see why she would be hyper suspicious of a guy who comes in and takes all the artwork down
and puts up swords
and decorates it with his sword fetish. He's a sword fetishist.
That's more what it is. It's not the swordsman, it's the sword fetish.
What is that about? Yeah, sure.
Well, just bring in.
A man have a hobby these days
Come on.
without being suspicious.
I mean, I give it for Kate. That's kind of like.
Look, she's being completely unfair. Completely. Mama hasn't seen anyone since he lost her husband.
Mama.
I mean, it's like. It's kind of outrageous if you think about it.
I love how you're giving her no quarter.
Yes.
You know, kids these days.
They want all the fun.
Jesus.
Well, Tony, I'll bring it to you. You've played a villain, a couple of times before. We're going to talk about the Better Call Saul, but I'm just curious, is there something particularly fun about maybe playing the bad guy, or maybe what some people would think is the bad guy?
Yeah, it's great because you keep them guessing. You don't know. You don't know if Jack Duquesne is the bad guy or not. He could just be the greatest guy in the world. So, I mean, I kind of feel bad that you're saying that about me. It's like you don't even know me, and you're already telling me I'm the bad guy. What the hell?
Judgy.
Why? It's like if I said something about you and you didn't know that.
It's the sword fetish.
I mean, what? Just a couple swords on the wall, and now I'm the bad guy.
Well, I would hardly say a couple.
I would say 15, some 20. People. I couched it. Some people may think you're the bad guy. I think you're lovely.
Oh,
thank you. I think you're lovely.
This is how we start an interview. This is how we do it.
I think you're lovely.
Also, a mustache and a sword on a guy, and you think he's a bad guy.
And then you just think he's just the worst guy in the world.
Not me.
Just because Kate thinks I'm a bad guy doesn't mean I'm a bad guy.
Yeah,
fair.
You think Kate's got all the answers?
Yeah, exactly.
Definitely not.
She just blew up a clock tower.
I mean, come on. Talk about bad guys.
I have to add this though real quick, since you are in both worlds and MCU fans are insane and so are Better Call Saul fans. Have you gotten to experience a little bit of both? Do you have any observations between the two fandoms?
No, I have no idea. I mean, we're just getting started here. The show hasn't even come out. And also with the whole pandemic thing, you just don't, you don't really get to go out or see anybody. Yeah. So I'm not really that,
oh, they'll find you. They'll find you. Don't worry. They will find you. Yeah. Vera, so obviously you play alongside Hailee, and I just want to talk about her. You've already given her the business, but just talk about working with her, because I know she was so great in this series, and she's talked already about how great it was working with you.
She's so great. I can't speak. She's a very talented young woman. She's fierce. She rises to every occasion. Look, she kills it. She kills it in this role. She's fierce every which way. You know how she delivers emotionally in this role, but physically as well. Watching her do the acrobatics and the fighting sequences and the sword fighting with you. And I mean, anything you throw in front of her, she's just like, yeah, sure, let's do it. And she gets it done.
I don't think there's any more you can say. She's amazing. I love that specifically. But I do have to ask both of you, because joining on the series side, but also after 26 films, and I think now we're on the 5th series, what was it about joining this sort of like cinematic universe? Was it just the part, or did you like have somebody in your family being like, if you get to be in a Marvel movie, you have to say yes? And Vera, I'll start with you.
Yeah. I mean, I knew that would be the coolest aunt in the world if I accepted the role. But I mean, I accepted the role, but there's still, I mean, the Marvel process is a very mysterious one. I mean, I don't sometimes know what I'm entirely in for. I didn't know what I was entirely in for when I said yes to the role. So it's like kind of go with the flow process with Marvel, which is actually terribly exciting.
I like that.
Yeah.
I still don't know if I'm in it or not. I like to think I am, but I don't know. I don't know if I can even say that I'm in this yet. And you're giving me an interview. So
No,
I haven't told anybody.
You're very much in it. Don't worry about that. But I will bring it back to that. What enticed you to sort of join in? Was it the character? Did you particularly have anybody encouraging you, or were you an MCU fan yourself?
I mean, yeah, I've seen the movies. I love them. I think they're great. I just found it very interesting that I was, being offered this part of the swordsman. It was just so surreal, because it was right in the middle of the heart of the whole pandemic. So then it was kind of like, get on a plane, go to New York, do this, and it's like, really? Are you sure? Like I said, I'm still not sure if I did that or not. I mean, it was just so weird and surreal. But I mean,
specific. I mean, it's a sword. It's like someone gives you a hatchet, Hatchet Man.
Yeah.
Or like
Hatchet Man.
or like Archer, right? It's just like
it's
a swordsman. That's cool.
Yeah, and there's comic books about the guy and everything, and you're like, all right,
sport.
let's do that. That sounds like fun.
Things have gotten more complicated.
I think the first thing I would ask you is what really sort of drew you to the Hawkeye character, and what did you find so compelling about him?
His humanity. I mean, he to me is the one of the most relatable characters in the Avengers, and I always found Clint's arc through the MCU again just really interesting, like his family life. And also the way, there was that scene with Wanda and Ultron, and obviously his relationship with Natasha. Sort of, I feel like he was the character that sort of truly kind of understood the price of what they were doing. Because again, his superpower is it's who he is, and not necessarily what he can do. And so I found that an interesting dynamic to explore, and then within that we had the Fraction run, which, to me, again, if it just when I read that comic, were I again gonna write a comic about a character, it's such a perfect way to sort of look at the absurdity of that situation and have fun with it, rather than make it sort of dark and brooding.
Yeah, and then sort of talking about, Jeremy, I mean, he's been playing this character for over a decade. And so coming in at this point and giving him the biggest spotlight he's ever had, even in that decade, how did you guys sort of start those conversations? Because again, this is not just a movie. This comes in with like a lot of baggage behind it.
Yeah, but again, Jeremy has lived this, and again, we've lived alongside him as fans, and so ultimately, again, you start having conversations about this character and these moments from his past. I'm sort of, I know you realize that you're talking about it in this almost sort of shared cultural history. The moment, again, I'm talking about Voromir and Natasha. Like I lived it with him, but you realize with Jeremy, he lived it too. It's like he feels these things. Like he's that sort of actor. I think that there's that it's an emotional journey that he's been on with this character. So again, it's just this privilege that you get this wonderful actor, but also this deep history that you're pulling on, and it doesn't, I can't tell him anything new. It's really just giving him the room to play with it.
Well, he definitely had fun playing with it. I think besides all the incredible jokes, especially just the fact that Hailee as Kate Bishop just gave him no quarter. But my favorite part as an unabashed theater kid was the musical within the musical. And so if you could just break down how that came about, because my Broadway kid heart just sang the minute I saw that.
We were essentially, trying to figure out just a good way to meet Clint, and you know, and yeah, maybe he's in New York, you know, with his kids. It's Christmas time, and yeah, I just started thinking about, well, what would be the last place that Clint would want to find himself as a person, and yeah, like watching a Broadway show about some traumatic moment in his life felt like the way to do it. So yeah, I threw it out as a silly idea in a meeting, kind of, you know, maybe what if. And Kevin, you know, kind of jumped on it, and then I immediately tried backtracking because I suddenly realized what it would mean, what we'd have to do. But yeah, no, we kept on, and I got to work with Mark Shaman and Scott Whitman on it, and yes, I, you know, again, as maybe some of my previous work will suggest, I enjoy Broadway and those musicals. So yeah, it was kind of fortuitous.
Yeah, I'm actually going to bring it right now to your previous work because a lot of people probably know you from like the SNL stuff. And I just have to ask this question because I feel you would know better than anyone. Which either SNL cast member or SNL character would fit best in the world of Hawkeye?
Oh, yeah. Well, my brain, I'm just going to, again, because I could spend ages thinking about this, but my brain immediately went to Stefan.
Yes.
I mean, he's the New York club kid, and yeah, that's at his heart. So yeah, that's where.
Yeah, I would very much like to see Bill Hader say, Hawkeye has everything.
Exactly.
Just, I don't think I could write it as well as they can. Bringing it back to the more serious side, like all of these shows, the incredibleness is, even though they're made for television as opposed to the big screen, they do not scrimp at all on the action, and there's so much within this. I'm just curious, which was the most exciting or challenging action sequence that you got to film in the show without, you know, maybe spoiling too much?
Well, we have a quite a spectacular finale, you know, which you come to expect from Marvel. So that was definitely, and again, I can't say what it is, but yeah, tune in. That was a big challenge. I mean, you know, I think the fun of this show, again, is the human characters, and, you know, for the action in general, like my philosophy coming in, it's just sort of talking to our stunt coordinator and talking to the other directors when they came on as well, was that I wanted to take the approach, you know, of again, grounding the action, making sure that we never overwhelmed the reality of these characters. They can't fly, they do get hurt, and so trying to maintain that reality. And again, to me, a good action sequence is actually usually it's more, you know, characters bickering in the middle of it, or the story. Like that's what's memorable to me. We've seen crazy impressive stuff in other franchises and in Marvel, and I felt like what we can do is we've got these great characters, and so let's kind of enjoy that ride with them.
What specifically excites you about being a part of it now that you're part of the Pantheon?
It's even you enunciating that, I'm like, oh god, I'm part of it.
Yeah, you are.
No, that's it. It's Marvel. It's crazy. It's bonkers. That yeah. I mean, I stood in MCU New York, and not just the New York I know, and so I got to do that. So no, it's all exciting. I mean, it's crazy. I got encapsulated.
Holy shit! There are arrows more dangerous than that one?
I just wanted to talk about, you know, when you sort of signed on and started putting all the pieces together for this, what was the direction you were sort of hoping to take Clint and maybe show a side that we hadn't seen before?
That exactly is the reason. It was just showing a different side of Clint. We have sort of established the type of character he was in Avengers, right? In all of the Avengers movie, he's a family man. He's a little bit more serious. It was the Ultimates version of the comics. But what I found interesting was there's a different side of Clint that we haven't seen before. And it's in some of the comic runs like Fraction that was so appealing. I couldn't put the book down when I started reading it. And it was just a lot of humor. And it was just the dynamic between the two of them. And I was trying to figure out, well, how do we bring that into the story, but not seem like we're ignoring what we've established in the last 10 years with his character. And Kate Bishop was the perfect person to sort of get that side of Clint out that no one has seen yet. So the focus really is about Clint and Kate's dynamic and the friendship and the bond that they've created. And that was what we had in mind in terms of the lighthearted tone for the series.
Well, and of course, Hailee and Jeremy are just so great together on screen. But also, this is now the 5th MCU series, and they've all seemed to just play in totally different parts of the universe. But if you were sort of looking at them now with number 5, what would you say to folks who maybe were a fan of the other ones? Like, what makes this one different?
And that is one of the reasons why we were trying to figure out how we set this apart from every every series that has come out or that will be coming out. And I think this one is different. Mainly, it's a holiday event. I love Christmas. I think, a lot of people at Marvel do. And we haven't done a Christmas setting since Iron Man 3. And who better to bring that to life than Clint Barton, who is one of the few Avengers who has a family. And he is dealing with the fallout after Endgame from losing his family during the 5 years blip, becoming Ronin, and then getting his family back. So it's the pressure of, wanting to be there for the holidays, because this is the first Christmas that they're having together. But he's stuck at a different location because of something that he can't get out of. And every day that he is missing is time spent with them. And the big question is he going to be able to make it home in time for the holidays?
Yeah, it is very planes, trains, and automobiles with way higher stakes. So let's just put it out there. As we talk about, Hailee Steinfeld's version of Kate Bishop, I know that the Fracture Run series in the comics was something that you pulled a lot from on both Clint and Kate Bishop. But what particularly about Hailee in her sort of casting, what elements of that character from the comics did you feel she was going to be the perfect person to play?
Well, I mean, Hailee is an incredible actor. I mean, look at the body of work she has done, and I think one of my favorites of hers is True Grit, and I think there's that sort of spunk she has, and that is Kate Bishop all the way, right? Kate from the comics is just, she speaks her mind. She's not afraid to do so. She's strong-minded, and she's got wit, and she's smart, and I think there is, Hailee carries that in her performances. And we knew that there was a version of Kate, and it was just finding that right person for it. And as soon as Hailee, walked into the Marvel office, it was just like, this is her, this is our Kate Bishop. And to see it on screen, and she did an amazing job. It was just, we're so happy with everything that she has, brought to the table for this character.
I love that. One of the great things about Marvel, both on the film side and on the television side, is they seem to just assemble a crew of, dedicated comic book nerds, both with you and Rhys, and obviously Kevin at the top of that. But I'm just curious, what can MCU or comic fans, what little Easter eggs should they maybe be looking out for? Maybe not even specific ones. Maybe there's an episode or a moment that you want folks to maybe scroll into the background to see if they can pick up something.
I have to say, out of all of the, maybe even all of the other projects that I've worked on, this one probably has the most comic nods, because there were so many good elements in the comics that I was just trying to put as much as I can in. And obviously, sadly, some of it had to go as we were tightening, the storylines, and some ended up on the cutting room floor. But we tried to preserve as much as possible. I think it's scattered throughout the episode. So I think, as soon as you see the rest of it, I'm dying to know how people are going to be picking up on the pieces that we've, included in there.
Well, I'm just going to say that they're sprinkled throughout like a lovely pizza. We'll find those toppings as it goes. But
there you go.
You set the stage, I think, quite well for maybe more story in season 2. If you do get to do a season 2, is there any areas or stories or maybe characters that you would like to see explored?
Obviously our focus is, let's get this one right and make sure that everybody's going to be happy with this one. And then we can go from there. Yes, there are, my mind's constantly going and it won't stop. And there's obviously a lot more to tell if the time is right, and the space is right in order to get us to where we need. in the overall MCU.
Oh, they trained you so well. You didn't give me anything in that question. I appreciate you.
You know what? After Infinity War and Endgame, where I couldn't say a single thing, I'm actually so glad that I can say a little bit of something here.
You're great. You're trained well. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Have a great day.
It's a pleasure meeting you.